All right, what's going on, Lisa? Today is a special episode.
It is very special.
I don't know, was there ever? I think we did maybe do one together a while back, just us, but it's
So
been a
I
long time.
I don't think it was ever just us. I think I was on your show a while back when you were doing like the 5 minute slots, and I
Oh,
think that was really the first podcast I had come on way before I got like super involved. But that is probably the last time that I got to talk about vertical pivot gates, and I'm excited to talk about them with you.
so everybody is watching. We've hijacked the Women of Epic. Well, you're always on it, so it's you're on there a lot. But I was asked if I would come on and help. Basically, I'm co-hosting with you because I mean this is almost your podcast today. But Susan was doing some stuff with the Rugrats and the kid, and so I said, yeah, heck yeah, I'll come on and talk about pivot gates, right?
Yeah. So we made a pivot.
Yeah, we made a pivot on tonight's show and went straight to pivot gates. So anybody that's watching, if you had any questions on pivot gates, drop it in the comments. We'll try to answer those as best as we can. But I think it's one of those things that not a lot of people talk about. I know. Well, at first, by the way, this podcast was something called Working Moms. I'm like, well, we're gonna have to switch that up. So it's not just going to be about women in the industry, but you have become kind of a powerhouse in the pivot gate industry side of it. I mean, you're everywhere when it comes to not just that, showing up at events, and not just the ones you guys are exhibiting at, but supporting and stuff, and showing up at the events outside of just the expos and stuff. So let's tell everybody about yourself, Lisa. Tell everybody about who you work for, AutoGate, everything, how you got into the industry. We want to hear what do you call it, the T.
Yes. So I'm Lisa. I work at AutoGate in beautiful Berlin Heights, Ohio, about 10 minutes south of Lake Erie. Um, and I do all of our marketing. I've been there full time, coming up on 7 years. I'll have been there 7 years in September, which is crazy. But realistically, I've been there since 1997 because that's when my mom started working there. So child labor laws. No, just kidding. But not really. So I had just made a post about it, I think on Sunday, about getting to see, all of these names and companies in the industry. I used to go in and file like our accounts payables, accounts receivables, our gate history files. I would go through and organize and sort and alphabetize. And it's been really fun for me over the last 7 years getting to, meet the people in the industry that I've been seeing their names for the last
Yeah.
almost 30 years now, and getting to meet some of the other powerhouses. And I would not be here without them. I would not be here without AutoGate. So it's been a wild ride, but I really enjoy what I do, and I really enjoy pivot gates.
That's weird. You
I
know what?
know it's a weird thing.
When you meet somebody you've talked to, and I do that all the time, you've talked to them for years. I mean, I've had reps that were reps of mine for like 20 years, and then I met them, in person, and I'm like, that is, I guess it's, I don't read a lot of books. My wife does, and I think it shows. But it's nonetheless, she's like, oh no, you don't understand. We watched the movie, and then it kind of tell you what the character looks like. But when you read a book, everybody envisions this character a little bit different, and in your mind, this is a 6 foot tall, Norwegian guy, and in somebody else's mind, it's a 3.5 foot tall penguin looking dude. You know what I mean? So it's like weird, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think it's like that. We talk to somebody in our industry, like a supplier or something, we talked to for years and years and years, and you have this vision based off their voice and their interactions and what they told you they've done, and whether they talk about hiking a lot or boating or this or that. So you kind of envision what they look like, and then you meet them in person. Have you ever had that where you met them in person, you're like, that is not at all what I thought?
Um, all the time. A couple times in this industry, one outside of the industry though, I have to tell this story because it's hilarious. When I went to college, the lady that I was speaking with that was, recruiting me, she would call my cell phone at like 9, 10 o'clock at night, which to me, I grew up in that era of like, you don't call somebody past a certain time. And she would call and I would hear her voice and she would talk to me. And then I met her in person. And this woman was, I think, 82 when I met her for the first time. She was the piano professor where I ended up going to college. And I had a totally, totally different persona, totally different person, totally different look. I mean, everything. I thought she was, you know, going to be some woman in her 40s, and here was Liz Pastor, and she just, I looked at her and I went, "You're Liz Pastor?" I was just thrown off because I had never seen her, but she was one of the most vibrant women, and so it came through in her voice, and it just, she came across as this young woman that was full of life, and turns out she was full of life but much older.
I had a sales rep that had that voice, you know, I was like, yeah, I was talking like this. It sounded like she was smoking like 3 cigarettes at once, and she was like had an oxygen tank. She was sitting next to like a slot machine, saying, "That's my machine," kind of thing, right? And then it was like, so I just envisioned kind of what I envisioned this like, I don't know, this old lady that like, you know, was hawking up parts of her lungs or something. And then I met her, and it was like this girl was like 28, 30, and I was like, wow, did not
Oops.
expect that. Let me take back that almond roca that I got you when I was going to drop off. No, that wasn't for you.
Crazy.
So what were you doing? So you're in marketing now. What were you doing before that? When you came to work for AutoGate, did you go straight into marketing?
No. So I had actually come home. I found out I was pregnant at the time with my son, who was my oldest child, and so made the decision to come home. So obviously mom's been there since 97, was born and raised, knew that they were looking for an admin assistant, receptionist to fill that position. And so my mom had asked the owners, Bill and Don, she was like, "Hey, Lisa's coming home. You know, she's done it before. She's going to be trying to get a job right away. Might be only temporary, but can she start and fill the position at least for a little while when she comes home?" And they were like, "Yeah, awesome. Have her come back," because I kind of knew how things worked to an extent. And she was like, "Oh, by the way, she's going on maternity leave in February." And they were like, "Bring her home." So love both of them for that. Grew up with them most of my life. They're like family to us. And so eventually, after a while, I wanted to get a little more involved, wanted to do more things, really, you know, believe in our product, believe in what we do as a company, and definitely wanted to get more involved with some places where I thought maybe I could help, and sat down with Brian Fritz, who is our GM, and he was like, "All right, do you want to, you know, go into this CSR role that's going to open up? Or do you want to do marketing?" Which kind of he had been doing at the time. We didn't really have a marketing position. It was just Brian doing what he could. At the time, he was still national sales manager. So it was Brian doing what he could to do all of our marketing and things like that. Was kind of already starting to organize, you know, trade show logistics and things like that. And I was like, well, I have the gift of gab, so let's do marketing. Joke's on me, because holy moly, there's way more involved in marketing, which I kind of knew to an extent, but man, this has been a totally different world, but I love it. There's never the same day twice. And like I said, it's kind of easy for, I don't want to say easy. It's enjoyable for me because I do, you know, believe in our product, believe in, you know, how we produce, how we manufacture as a company. And so it makes it easy for me to speak honestly about what it is that we do. So that's kind of how I've ended up where I'm at now. So probably the better part of the last 5 years, I've been kind of poking my way around and learning more. And it's getting there. There's still a lot that I have to learn, a lot that I have to learn about the industry, a lot that I have to learn about marketing. But, you know, there's groups like the Women of FWA who, you know, open their arms and take you in, and we all kind of share insights and what we're doing on a daily basis. And it's made it a lot easier over the last, you know, year or so that I've really started, you know, getting involved and talking to the other women in the group. It's been great. And I feel like I have progressed more because of that. So
Yeah. And I every once in a while I hear Yadira on the meetings with you guys, and the Women FW meetings I hear in the other room, and I typically go out to the patio or something, and I hear it. Man, you guys are just way more supportive of each other than I think than most of us. I mean, you actually will sit there and cry together over stuff that's going on in your lives, personal wise. You'll sit there and actually ask people, how are you doing? And you mean it. I mean, us guys, we just get on there and we insult each other a little bit, and hey, quit being a crybaby. Right, and
Don't worry, I
like,
get that too. I've got three brothers, so I've had my fair share of that. So it's nice to have a group of women, in my corner. I love my brothers, I do, but the trash talk is very real and alive.
it's still there, yeah. And being marketing, if anybody's listening, it's the more you get into it, I think it is a team effort, but it's not a team game because it's a lonely game. It's not what everybody thinks. You're marketing. You do have the gift of gab, and I have the gift of gab, but that doesn't mean we spend all of our time in marketing gabbing. It's a lot of time by yourself on your computer, drawing this up, designing this on your phone, 2 a.m, this, that. I mean, it's a lot of it's lonely sometimes doing the marketing. So it's, even though you see us all the time online, it's lonely, isn't it?
Yeah, and I know you are, as much a perfectionist as what I am with things, and sometimes things that, you would think should take about 5 minutes to do, it's not the case at all. And then I'm sitting there and 2 hours have gone by and I'm like, man, I really I thought I had this done, and then I tweaked things for another half an hour, and it's like, okay, well, this is good enough. Move on, do something else.
The rest of the office is all laughing. They're going out to lunch, and you're just buried in your computer because there's nothing anybody can help you on, right? And you're like, I want to go work with them. Where are you guys going? Right? but hey, let's not forget what we came here about. I want to talk about pivot gates. I know we haven't had a chance to really talk about pivot gates and the misconceptions of pivot gates and what they are. I mean, I just assumed a pivot gate in the beginning was just taking a swing gate operator and turning it on its side, right? Isn't that kind of what, just having it? but there's more to it than that, right?
Oh, that's terrifying.
So what makes, and obviously anybody listening, don't do that. That's not going to work. But if it does work, don't do it anyway. Right? So what makes a pivot, what makes a pivot gate different than a swing gate? And when we're saying pivot gates, let's tell people what a pivot gate is. So maybe what's in your simplest form of explaining what a pivot gate is, tell everybody what it is, and let's tell them what's different than between that and a swing gate.
Um, when I'm talking to people that like really don't know, I always explain it as a railroad gate, like at a railroad crossing. So you've got gates that swing and slide, and then you've got pivot gates that go up and down like you're sitting at a railroad crossing. It's just got, a section of fence on it instead of an arm.
Yeah, so those flashing gates. Yeah, I mean, and they've been, I think we were going to talk about this earlier. Like, when was the first pivot gate ever used? And then we're both like sitting there going, I don't know. We could tell you when the first time we saw one, but I guess they would go back to as far as manual ones. I mean, you deal with the automated ones, but manual ones they've been going up forever, and they weight them in the back to make them easy to open and long gates. When was the first time you saw a pivot gate? Was it at AutoGate? Did you ever see them out before then?
Um, if I did, probably not that I noticed them. But I mean, I was 7 when mom started there, so I was around them pretty early on. And then, we were in with the Ohio Turnpike. So like all of the service entrances had an AutoGate system on there. So anytime we were on the turnpike, I would see the service entrances and exits, and I'd go, Mom, look, there's our gates. There's an AutoGate. And now it's kind of funny because my kids do the same thing. There have been multiple times where I'm intentionally out driving around, taking pictures of gates because I always need more content. And now we'll be driving in the car and they know enough. They'll see one and they'll be like, oh, there's an AutoGate, or locations that we drive by on a daily basis. There's a couple of storage units close to where we live. Various places where they know that AutoGates exists. And so they will look for them and point them out, which is, melts my heart.
unless they're in a hurry and they're trying to get to the McDonald's Jungle Gym, if they still have those. Then they're not even, hey, don't mention the gate. It's coming up. I don't want her to stop and take some pictures of this thing. So they're like trying to hide it, distract you with pointing over there. But
right.
So my pivot gate experience goes back to like, I think Storage Ones they were called. And along in Las Vegas, it's changed since then. It's like changed names of the storage complexes.
Yeah.
And I remember
oh my
being in
gosh.
complexes. And that, I mean, it's
Yeah,
been 90s. I believe the 90s I'm going back to when I remember seeing them.
yeah. I know. So we were founded in 86,
Yep.
and we came out of a fabrication company. And just brief history of AutoGate. You know, we were a fab company. We had somebody drop by with a gate. We ended up reverse engineering it. It was somebody who actually was in the horse, not industry, but was, you know, competitive horse riding, showing, not riding, competitive
Yep.
horse showing. And so that's how we ended up with our Congress gate, because of the Ohio Horse Congress. But that was kind of where we started. No, I'll be done in a minute. Okay, right there. Sorry, that's my kiddo.
I spotted a pivot gate.
So yeah, she's gonna help me talk about pivot gates. So lost my train of thought there for a second. So they started with those and, you know, kind of reverse engineered it. And that's where we got our start in vertical pivot gates. But I remember, like I said, from filing early on, I know Uncle Bob's storage. I don't know what was out in Las Vegas, but you said Storage One. I do remember seeing those, but like the Uncle Bob's storage, which I think turned into Life Storage eventually. But yeah, that was pretty crazy to see. That's a lot of business that we do is in storage industry. We do a lot more outside of that now too, more industrial, commercial, things like that. But we still are a big part in the storage industry, just because, you know, space constraints, things like that. When we do our marketing, a pivot gate allows for extra parking spots because you don't have to have the back end for the slide gate or room for the swing gate to open. So, you know, you can market it that way. Oh, it gives you, you know, an extra spot, or you can build an extra storage unit in your building if you have a vertical pivot gate. So that gets into more the benefits and why it works in that situation.
And I don't think it's something people automatically think of. You just instantly start thinking of slide gates and swing gates and things like that. You don't automatically think of a gate, a massive gate. So, and to us, we started even talking about those railroad things. Those are more like barrier arms in our industry, like, you know, where it'd be like a lot of companies make automatic barrier arms where it's just a 1x3 board that goes across there. So I guess it would go from being called a barrier arm to a pivot gate once you actually have a full blown gate being lifted up. Is that what it is?
Yes and no. I know we have our Barracuda, which is just kind of that arm. And it's a very simple, I mean, it's still, I guess you could consider it a gate. But it's got, you know, your tubular steel or aluminum or whatever you want to use. And we use our big operator box for that. Usually when you see a barrier arm like that, it's something a little bit smaller, but there are situations, where Barracuda on one of our systems would be a necessity. You can also get into like crash systems. We've got our crash barrier arm that's on our gates. So, you know, that's a barrier arm too. It's just significantly heavier and has that crash rating on it.
So does that go down and like lock in the other side or something?
It doesn't necessarily lock. There's a section where it's kind of hollowed out and it's got a notch in it that it sits into.
Okay.
But mostly what you would consider locking it would be like where the I want to say bollards, but that's not the right word. I'm blanking on it.
It's okay.
Bolsters. So what's going to lock it into place is the bolster that it sits down into. So it's not necessarily that it's locking, but it's definitely not going anywhere. And if you would like to see an example of that, you can always go to the AutoGate website and watch our crash videos.
Was that autogate.com?
Yeah, www.autogate.com. And then you can go to the drop-down menu. You'll see vertical pivot gate, shield. If you go to our shield, it says shield videos. They're really cool. That's like one of my favorite things to show people at trade shows, because that's the other thing too. As much as people, you know, might not know about vertical pivot gates, you know, there's people that we've worked with for 20 years that had no idea that we manufactured crash systems, M30s and M50s. And I'm like, yeah, we tested them in 2006. We've had them for 20 years. But But that's kind of the fun thing that you can do with vertical pivots too, is have those big crash barrier arms that lift and lower. You don't have to wait. They're not quite so slow going back and forth, opening and closing. So,
well, let's talk about that opening. And this is probably a huge misconception out there, is about that if you walk under this thing, anything happens, catastrophic happens, something happens, and somebody hits this thing, anything, that gate's just going to fall down on you and your car, and that just freaks people out. I mean, you're like walking underneath it, you're looking around, and you're afraid that thing, because these things typically come installed, right, already into the equipment. You build them per that, and we'll get into that. But let's talk about how it's actually working. Like, is this thing just being barely held up and one little chain breaks or something, and this whole thing just falls down and causes a disaster, or what happens?
No, that's not going to happen. I'm laughing because I saw JC Gurry has the guillotine comment there. That is a common misconception. No, it is not a guillotine. So when you see those, it's going to be more prone to, if something happens, it's going to open. We've got compression springs in there. So if something's going to go wrong, it's going to open, or at least stay at like a 45-degree angle. And that has to do with the balancing of the gate. We've got them perfectly balanced when they go out on site. And that's what's going to help it stay safe for you. Because it's going to want to open instead of come down.
So we're not the compression springs. You're actually putting compression springs in there. Us hitting us is not the compression spring. So you've got something set up to hold it open. So your motors. So just to clarify, your actual motors are pushing the thing down more than pulling it up.
Yeah, I mean, and it's only a 0.5 horsepower motor anyway. So when it's balanced in there, it's going to hang. So wherever those springs are pulling it to, it's going to hang right there. And I mean, the probability of all of the springs snapping at once, I mean, realistically, that would have to be the only thing where it could possibly ever come all the way down. And just the probability of that happening is
low.
You've got bigger problems.
Something else happened. Yeah. Because I remember the first time, we went out and worked on one a long time ago, many years ago, back when it was at Storage One, and we opened it up and we were going to replace the gate. And then we actually had to call and have this thing completely recalibrated, I guess, because we had to build the gate exactly the same to do any work on it because of the weight. So when people are working on these things, you deliver these things out, and the gate installed inside the operator, everything comes out on a truck, and it kind of gets dropped down and bolted down. And I'd like to get into some of that footer, but what happens when we got to repair these things if it gets hit? What do you think the procedures are on that?
So, I mean, we've got replacement gates that we can send out. It really depends on how damaged the linkage arm is. So if that linkage arm gets hit, that's what's attaching to the inside, to the inner workings of the gate. The gate itself can be bent and still operate to an extent, but it's really that linkage arm that attaches the gate to the operator. And that's where you're going to want to, see, is that bent? Is that busted? Is that compromised at all? And then once you take that gate off, so like what we do, as the manufacturer, if you're buying from us, we have those drawings in-house of your gate still. So we make that gate exactly the same. And then we send it out to you. And obviously, we do our own in-house training on this, going over replacement, taking springs out, putting them back in, replacing the gate. It is important that you do know what you're doing. So obviously, you can't, there's recently been one instance of a group of, I will call them service techs, that did not know what they were doing with our gate, and they could have been seriously hurt. So you do still have to know, how to replace the system and take the proper precautions. We've got a gate pin in the back, so you want to make sure that that's in, holding the gate in place as well. But there's a process for doing that. But like I said, it depends on that linkage arm, whether or not you're going to have to replace, the operator itself, or if you can replace just the gate. It really depends on the situation and how much damage you've got to the system.
So if the gate, the end of it gets hit, you can cut it up, you can cut it off and re-weld a new end to it or something. You could do some repairs to the gates, or is that just completely not recommended at all that you do any modifications to the gate or repair it? Or is this like what's not a subject we're not supposed to talk about?
I will say we have some of our installers and distributors who have come to AutoGate. They have learned how to balance the gates and do everything that we do in-house. And we are comfortable with those companies, you know, cutting and field welding. Obviously, we know that kind of thing happens, but you're going to want to check with us on your warranty then, because it's going to void the warranty unless you have come to us and we have worked with you and, you know, we've said you as a company are able to do that. And there's only a handful like that. Generally, it's going to be, we're going to remake a gate for you and send it out to you. You know, I'm not sure, and this is one of the things that I don't know. I'm not sure how many people out in the industry are doing that field welding. I will say if that is something that you're going to do, you then need to make sure that you go back and you rebalance the gate to make sure that it is in balance. And that's one of the biggest reasons why we ship assembled systems now. Every once in a while we'll send crated if we have to, but you know, shipping those assembled systems makes sure that, you know, it comes properly balanced. And realistically, it's one of the easiest installations. You pull it off the trailer, you set it on the pad and you bolt it to the ground. Wire up your electric. But you know, like I said, that balance is one of the main reasons we want to send those systems assembled, because that means that we are, you know, mitigating some risks there.
So do they come with there's got to be some safety devices obviously factored in. Do they come with some pre-mounted photo eyes where you just got to mount a reflector on the other side, or does it have a safety edge along the bottom? What does it take to get that thing operating? Like a lot of operators now, they won't even operate unless you've got in this case, I don't know why you would have an opening. There's nothing, you know, unless somebody's standing above the thing, right? But you got to have an opening and a closing safety device. What does it take with yours, or what does it come with?
You know, it depends on what the usage is. We obviously go by UL, so whatever class it is, because there's some classes where, you know, you don't have to have those things because somebody's there physically pressing a button to open and close it. You know, it depends on what you're ordering it for, but yeah, we have photo eyes, we've got bump edges along the bottom and along the back edge. So where that pinch point might be, there are minimal pinch points as opposed to other gates. But where that pinch point would be in the back, where it's going into the throat, it's got edge along there. It's also got the inherent reversing. So like if you're under it, it's going to press down on you a little bit. Like if a car is under there, obviously it's going to dent your car, but it'll say, oh, hey, there's something there, and it'll reverse. So not only does it have that, plus the bump edge on the bottom. And of course there's, you know, other devices that you can put on. You can, as many as you want to wire up, you can put in there. You know, we've got loops for travel in and out with vehicles. So
pretty much anything you put on another gate. Yeah. So Jeff, I don't know. Do you know Jeff Graff?
Not personally.
He does a lot of training with us. He always comes to the Fence Show and does training. He'll be doing some training again this year. So I believe he's out in Ohio. So he has a question. You know, he says he does a lot of gate welding. He's really experienced in fencing. He does a lot of stuff in gate trainings and stuff. So he says he does a lot of welding in the field. How can his company go about going through your training? He's in Ohio.
If you give us a call, especially if you're in Ohio, 419-588-2796. And then you're going to want to talk to either tech support or, go through to the front desk. Amber, our admin, will help get you signed up for that. You can also talk to any one of our sales reps and they'll put you through. We do about one every other month. I'm not sure if September is full or not yet, but I'm sure we can find a spot for you.
Jeff, drop a text to me. I'll figure it out, get you in contact with them as well. We'll help you kind of facilitate this, and we'll get you Lisa's number in case it's late at night or on the weekends you need to talk to somebody. You know? He says,
Thanks.
he's like, you're in Northern Ohio. You're in Northern Ohio?
Yeah, we're about 20
Okay.
minutes from Cedar Point.
Okay. Yeah, cool. So there you go. You got people who are interested in this. So maybe we'll get together and do some put some training out for people with FWA or the Fence University too. I know we talked about
Yeah.
that. So you'll see Jeff at the Fence Show.
Awesome.
So
Looking
so you
forward
guys
to
will
it.
kind of be in there. Yeah. Jeff said hello earlier. Let's go back in here and say hi to a couple people. You know Karen. You know Karen already, I think, from Easy Louver.
Yeah.
Yep. So she said, "Hey, what's
Hi,
up, Karen?" JC Gurry's in the house. He says too much laying down on the job.
You know what? They will not let me live that down. I took one photo. One photo. Do you know this photo that I'm talking about, Brian?
I don't. I wish I had it now because I would pull it up. So if anybody has it, drop it. We're gonna drop it. Mark, if you have it, I'm assuming that's Mark. I don't know if there's a way to drop images on there, but post it. We'll figure it out. I'll send it over. We'll get it up on here. But hey, let's talk about the foundations of these things a little bit. Because you said easy to install. So is it as easy? I mean, because on a gate operator, we pour concrete pads ourselves at Las Vegas Fence. It's our preferred method. We do a lot of commercial, industrial, and I don't really drive a lot of posts and do mounting stuff like that. So we pour concrete pads. We don't do stands and things like that. So I'm just not equipped for anything else. So we do run the conduit and stuff. So I'm assuming this takes a sizable concrete pad though. I mean, a little bit bigger than a 2x2.
Yeah. It's off the top of my head, I believe it's 7x4, which gives you, room around the edges, but you want to bolt it down in, and it's going to go 36 inches, or to the frost line. So if you're a little farther north, like up in Canada, I know that you go down a little bit farther, down below that frost line, just so that, when it heaves, it's not going to mess with the base.
Yeah. So really, that's really not as big as I thought. I was thinking it would be wider than 4 feet. So this thing doesn't have a huge footprint for being as massive. So let's talk about the gates though. The operators. So you say it's a 0.5 horsepower motor. Is that just like one unit kind of works for everything? And you do the balancing different? Do you do weights or balances on the back of the gate to do this, or is it all done with springs?
So we do occasionally put counterbalance on it. It depends on the length and height of the gate. Our operators are all the same. So if you get an operator from us, regardless of what gate is on that box is going to be the same size. It's going to have the same components in it. The only thing that's going to change in there is the number of springs. And then, like I said, you might have a counterbalance on it. But other than that, everything in there is going to be identical. So
yeah. So let's talk about servicing these things though. Is it service pretty similar to a gate operator motor? I mean, is it easy to access the service manuals? Does it have to be a specialized service trainer? Do you have service programs for that?
We encourage everybody to come to our training class. Obviously, there's people out in the field who have been doing it for so long now, but Brian trains some of those folks. Some of them have been with us for 20 plus years, 25 years. Some of them helped us learn how to service the gates back in the day. So it's pretty straightforward. Every operator comes with an installation and operation manual. We've got a great tech support team that you can call and get a hold of them. It's a little tricky when you've got different time zones sometimes, because we're there till 5, and 5 o'clock here is 2 for you guys out there, I think.
Yeah.
So, but our tech support team is phenomenal. Brian Pullen, Marshall Howell, they do a great job answering questions. But I mean, a lot of times, sometimes you'll get things that are hard to diagnose, but we really believe in a strong preventative maintenance schedule, and that tends to alleviate a lot of problems. So basically twice a year, make sure you grease your springs and put oil where there needs to be oil, and check it out. You do want to make sure that you rotate the belts about every 6 months. So when the gate lifts and lowers, it's only doing a half a rotation. So you want to make sure that you flip those around and take them out. That can be a little tricky because you have to take the motor harness off, but that's something that you could learn in our training. And there's pictures and everything in our manual too. So like I said, you can always call us if you need help doing it, but we do encourage people to come to that training. And we'd love to get more people coming to that training too.
Yeah. Anybody that's interested, drop it in here. Lisa will go back and catch these, I'm sure, or one of us will. And so I am curious though, since I know you're not on the tech support side of it, but you obviously, you guys aren't such a massive company that you don't hear about stuff that's going, if there is something that happens, right? So you probably hear about it. So what do you think some of the common mistakes are made when they're installing it? Like something you've heard more than once that an installer did, they got this unit, it was delivered out there, or is it just pretty much a plug and play thing and you don't have that many issues?
I mean, with the actual installation, it's a plug and play. The issues that we run into is, when there's a disconnect and maybe, the architect or engineer for whatever reason, and we're pretty good about talking to these people to begin with, but there's just something with the drawing where maybe there was a grade where there wasn't supposed to be, and so now something doesn't sit right. You're going to run into those issues. But as far as the actual installation process, it's pretty straightforward. Plug and play, set it down, bolt it, make sure you got, whoever's hooking up your electric, and then putting the safety devices in, the photo eyes, stuff like that, wiring those up.
So are these DC motors or AC? Are they all?
So you can be hooked up to AC power, but it's got a battery backup. So depending on how many times you're using it, it can get switched over in case of a power outage. You're going to get about 150 cycles out of your gate.
That's plenty. So it is an AC motor with like a battery built into it, like a inverter or something?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's how they all used to be like there. I remember you used to have to get the battery backups, but I would imagine, I was curious about that because you said half horsepower. What do you think the future of these things are going? And have they been changing like circuit board wise? When I first started doing gate operators, all relays and stuff inside. Now they're getting smarter boards and stuff, but along with that comes more features and more stuff to kind of, troubleshoot. Are these things going to get smarter coming up in the future?
As it stands right now, we've got our Genesis board that's in it. So, we started with, I'm trying to figure out how far back. So from my memory and what I remember and things that are still occasionally out in the field. So we had an Apollo board that was in running it to start with. And then we had a LiftMaster board. And then I think it was 2017 or 18. I started back in 2019. So it was not long before I got back that we switched over to our Genesis board. So it's our AutoGate proprietary Genesis board. And it's a pretty basic circuit board, you're hooking things in. So it works with all kinds of access control. There's not really anything that it doesn't function with, as long as you can wire it in.
Yeah. Well, I'm designing the very next smart board for gate operators, which basically what it's going to do is start monitoring my social media. So when you pull up to it, it's going to be like, I don't know, Lisa hasn't been liking a lot of my pictures lately. So it's going to be so smart that it will know that, and it's not going to let you in. Right? So
awesome. You let me know when you've got that finished.
And the gate doesn't open when you get there. It's probably because you didn't like enough of my pictures. So I'm going
to have to change that.
The ultimate smart board, yeah. So hey, there's Yadira came on here. She wanted to say hi. So
hi,
that's
Yadira.
my boss. That's my boss. She's in the other office over there. Looks like Jeff Jeff definitely wants to sign up. So let's get we'll definitely sync everybody up. Yeah. So then let's try to rally some people. Let's get a training going. And I'd like to come out to that and run through it as well, because I'm definitely fascinated by that stuff. Let's do some. Wow, time went by quick, man. Look at that.
I know. I'm looking at it and I'm like, I want to keep going with it. So if anybody's still, tuned in and with us, thank you. I know this usually lasts about a half an hour, but there's so much to cover on this topic, and it's one I don't get to talk about a lot. We love having this podcast, and we love, doing things focused. We've been doing a lot with mentoring lately and being women in the industry, but it's fun for me to get to talk a little bit about, what I see on a daily basis at work.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do want to get and it's nice because I know that's why I was so excited when they're like, "Do you want to come on and talk with Lisa?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, let's do it." You know? But let's do some rapid fire questions for you on this. I just saw these for the first time too, so we're gonna spit them out there. If it and I'll help
Hey,
out on
that's
one of them
my
if we have
job.
to.
Aren't you technically my guest? I feel like
Well,
you ought to be answering
I
these.
know, but we want to hear more about pivot gates, and I don't know that much. I've never actually physically
Uh,
installed one. I've just been out to them, and I've done everything you're not supposed to do when you go out and service a pivot gate. I mean, I've
don't
cut
tell
the
me
ends
that.
off. I brought them back to I mean, 10, 15 years ago, I brought them back to the shop and just rebuilt them, laid on top of each other. Probably wasn't even the same thickness steel. Went and installed them, and now that storage unit is probably, I don't even think it's there. They ended up replacing it with a slide gate, probably because of the gate I built. I don't know, but it's decades ago. But I'm saying that, but watch, it was like a month ago, right? No, it was not a month ago, but rapid fire. Biggest pivot gate you've seen?
Biggest pivot gate. I don't know. There's some out in the yard. They're very tall. I mean, I'm pretty short, but sometimes you see these gates that are like 10 feet tall and you look up and you're like, oh my goodness. But just because of the nature of the system, they're usually a little bit shorter. So the monster tall gates aren't generally super long. Um, but yeah, 10 feet tall. Longer gates, 26 feet. Those are pretty expansive. And then if you put them, where it's a dual opening system, that gets pretty long, and that's pretty impressive to see. Usually those are at like distribution centers that have big trucks going in and out.
If you haven't seen one of these gates in person and you see a 20-foot tall gate, 6, 8 feet tall, swing up like this, it is something to see, isn't it? You're just like, wow. And because I've seen prisons where the whole gate goes up like this, right? And you drive under,
Yeah.
and that's pretty common in prisons and things. But to see a gate swing up like this is really cool to see. So I'm hoping that it takes off, it takes off even more. So here's gonna be a tough one for you. So I'm just gonna throw it out there. If you know the answer, great. If you don't, you just say pass and we'll move on. Okay. So favorite pivot gate manufacturer.
Oh, that is so tough. AutoGate.
AutoGate. Not biased at all on that one, right?
None. Zero. Absolutely not.
So, biggest installer mistake besides not using AutoGate when you're putting in a pivot gate?
Biggest mistake. Probably putting the wrong hand on a side, the way that things are handed. So if you've got like public and private side, and
I got you.
maybe if you're brand new and you put it on the wrong side, that's probably a big one.
So when they order them up, they order left or right?
Yep.
Okay. So that means access panels are on a different side or something? Is that what you would have it? Oh, otherwise you end up
Yep.
putting a fence right in front of your access panels or something, right? And then you
Yep.
wouldn't be able to get in.
Or it's turned facing the public, which there are certain situations that call for that. But generally
Yeah, but
speaking, you want those on the private side so nobody can get into your gate.
but if you didn't do it on purpose, it was a mistake. So,
Yep.
right? Okay.
Yep.
Best application. I know you see it everywhere. What's the best application for a pivot gate? For a gate that swings up?
Everywhere. I don't know. I like seeing them in, northern territories because it's also very easy to open the gate and plow. There's
Yep.
no tracks that snow's getting stuck in. So super great application to have. Up north, as far as being in the south, just, I don't know. Like I said, I'm super biased, but it's definitely space saving.
Yep.
And anywhere that you've got, just a little room to work with, you don't
Yep.
have anything on the back end. It doesn't have to swing open. So if you've got anything in the way, like a wall or something like that, it's going to work for you in those situations.
Yeah, I agree. So it's compact and you can get it in a place where you don't have room for a gate to slide. Because I mean, I come from Alaska and stuff. My uncle's own fence companies in Oregon and Alaska. And it was a lot of cantilever gates because you didn't have the track and stuff on the
Yeah.
ground. So when you got ice and snow and things like that, and you needed your gate to be able to move. You need that thing off the ground, and you need to be able to push through the snow, and that ice would get on the tracks and things. So this is
Yeah.
another good place to use that would be somewhere if you had weather and snow building up, because it'll just lift right out of the snow, and then you can plow through with your
Yeah.
vehicle or hopefully a plow, right? So that's a good
Yeah.
answer on that one. What's the most challenging install on pivot gate you think? Out of balance, like on level ground, or somewhere where, I mean, is there a situation where it would make it more challenging?
Um, well, we did have one of our dealer installer companies just put in a new gate local to us about 5 minutes down the road from the shop, actually. Um, and it was one of those situations where there was a little bit of a disconnect, and the drawings that we had, there was no grade, and there was a slight grade when they went to set the boxes down. And this particular installer did a great job. Shout out Matt from Citywide. He was able to put some shims underneath and get it solid and make it so that it was secure. And like I said, he did a really great job with that. But probably those situations where the drawings that we were given are not what the contractor decided to do in the long run, and didn't give us those updates.
Yeah. That'd be bad. That'd be challenging. Yeah, so it's like
Yeah.
any gate operator, it's challenges, but with your stuff, it seems like it's pretty nice. It comes out and you just set it down. If you place it right, pour your pad right, get your foundation right, it should go in pretty smooth and probably less time than you spend hooking up other stuff. So I like that. Where do you
Yeah.
see the pivot gates, the whole pivot gate industry in the next 10 years? I mean, opposed to now. 10 years from now, obviously technology changes, the industry changes
Ooh.
a little bit. I mean, with all that you guys are doing to get the name out there and make awareness for pivot gates, where do you think it's going?
I think there's a lot of room to expand. We talk about it sometimes, and I get a little, ahead of myself because I see, Fence Workers Association and going across the pond a little bit, and I know there's still so much of a market that we haven't tapped into here in the US. But I see pivot gates, making their way across the ocean at some point. There's a couple of groups that I have followed that are, UK based and things like that. And,
Yep.
not to, I never want to trash a swing or a slide gate. There are certain applications for both of those where, it's a great use case. I just happen to think that vertical pivots are better. But, I see a lot of things posted. I think one of them is gate safe, but there's always, some issue going on where somebody's getting hurt, or, things that were absolutely preventable. And in my brain, I'm always going like, well, that pinch point doesn't exist on a vertical
Yeah.
pivot gate. So I think the next 10 years, even aside from, technology expanding and things like that,
Yeah.
I personally would hope to see us, grab that market share in the US and be able to expand outward a little bit. So
Yeah. So I do want to do some takeaways. I know this is longer than I said it was going to take today. We're probably, I know you guys are normally
it's
wrapping up in
it's
30
you and
minutes.
I.
I
Neither of
know,
us know how to shut our mouths, so I knew that
I
this was going to
know,
run
right?
long today.
I could go on for an hour and a half, 2 hours about these. And plus, it's an industry I find fascinating. I mean, like I said, until you see one in person, it's like seeing some amusement ride for the first time. And I'm not that kids, you should not jump on this thing. It's not an amusement ride, but it's no fun. It's not a catapult.
Bad.
So don't,
That's
yeah, don't
bad.
go on these things. So, why I do want to do some stuff takeaway for people that are watching this thing that may jumped on a little later, didn't hear the whole thing, on when someone should choose a pivot gate, and or consider a pivot gate. And I believe it's a practical solution when you got a little bit heavier gates too, because you guys can adjust for that, and you can make a gate that's heavier, less likely to fall over. You don't have as much chances of it, just one wheel breaking and a whole gate falling. You've got and it does, like she said, it ends up getting to a certain point where it stays at one spot, and you've got to push it down or pull it up. So it's going, I think they're a lot safer in a way than some of the other gates when you got heavy gates. And then limited swing space, that's huge. I mean, you don't have room to slide because sometimes you're in between two buildings or in between some storage units or you're in between somewhere where you've got a 20-foot opening, even a cantilever gate, you better have 32 feet beyond that, right? So you're talking about
Yeah.
you need 30, 40 feet for a 24-foot opening. This is going to give you that same 24-foot opening with maybe only another 7, 8, 9 feet, right? And you're opening an entire
Yeah.
gate up. Obviously, at least the width of the height of the gate, it better go up. So it does that, that's a big deal. Steep driveways. I think this is something, if you built this gate correctly, you could build this thing on a steep driveway and have this thing swing up out of the way and come
Yeah.
back down. So I mean, that's a huge advantage.
We do that a lot. That's a big selling point for us. A lot of places now, like storage units, they're building new, they're going to have a nice smooth grade, but that is not always the case. I mean, we've had some units where it's got, drainage swales. So
Yeah.
you see it start here and then it gets really big down to that drainage
Yeah.
and then it tapers off again. So we custom build, and that's the other thing too, is we custom build these to your site. Somebody's going out and taking measurements, either the installer is taking measurements. If it's close enough by us, I know we've sent people out to take measurements before just to be sure. So that's a huge selling point for us,
Yeah.
is
You
being
could
able
build
to match
a gate that
those.
goes like this. You could build a gate that goes out, goes a V shape down into a ditch and comes back out and have it still lift out and come back in.
Yeah.
You can't do that with you can't do that with a cantilever gate. So you can't do that with a swing gate. It's tough. So I think that's a big plus and we didn't get into that. I know we could have got into about that with the steep, on steep driveways and stuff, high wind areas.
Yeah.
Also, you're not dealing with two leafs trying to come in here, a leaf with a magnetic lock and things like this. That would probably be a good spot to use this. Different size openings and different size and like that. So I did want to kind of get that out there to people. There's a lot of applications when hopefully that made you guys think about it a little bit. Reach out to Lisa or one of us and we'll get you in touch with Lisa to talk about at least getting you a number or something if she wants on building you a custom gate and an operator. So biggest myths, I wanted to smash this, you guys. Biggest myths about pivot gates. These things are not going to just, unless there's some catastrophic, like she said, one in I don't know how many times chances of all the springs breaking, this thing is not just going to fall down and hit you and your car in the head. If anything, it's going to go up to a certain point and probably safely stay up so you can get out or get them underneath it. So that's a myth. I don't know if you had any other myths of pivot gates that you wanted to crush, Lisa, on that, but I think that's the biggest one.
Yeah, I mean that's the one we hear. I'm still laughing at guillotine. People call them chop gates, things like
Yeah.
that. But this is, I hesitate to say things so people, don't come to sue us later, provided something catastrophic would happen.
Yeah.
I really think this is one of the safest systems that you can find out there. It just really does its job well. So it's not going to hurt you. And like I said, if something catastrophic is happening, you've got bigger problems because there's something else going on.
Yeah, and we spend a lot of time talking about safety, but I think every time they're talking about safety and stuff like that, they should at least bring this up. Hey, here's another option on that. So I think it's really cool. Not that our operators aren't safe. We've came so far in the last, I'd say 10 years. It kind of stalled out for a while, but the last 10 years we came a long ways on making all the gate operators safe out there. So whether you're using a swing gate, slide gate, they're not the same ones that were on the market 10 years ago. That are out now. So definitely take a look at this, though. It's another option. Advice we want to give installers that are considering doing their first pivot gate. I think Jeff kind of answered it right there, right? What's your advice for installers doing their first pivot gate?
Call and talk to us. Even if you're not able to, come out and do a training. Like I said, we highly suggest that. But, call our tech support team. Call our sales guys, Chris and Andrew and Tony. They'll walk you through some things too. But realistically, if you're looking at installing one of these for the first time, it's plug and play. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. So everybody that's listening, Lisa, thank you for coming on. Everybody that's listening, if you enjoyed this episode, you want to hear more episodes like this, or get Lisa back on, or someone else have some questions, share your experiences about this one in there. If you enjoyed it, drop something in there, like it, follow it, and ask some questions. let us know. Give us some future episode ideas. We'd love to bring on some other topics for gates or fence that you want to discuss. Lisa, thank you for taking time away from your family at this late in the evening
Hey,
for you.
thank you. I was excited when Susan told me you were coming on because it's not very often that I get to be on with you. I know you're doing your thing on your show and we've got our thing on our show, and sometimes there's some crossover, but
Yeah.
it's fun to talk to somebody that's, out there with the gates and systems, and we can talk a little bit of shop.
Yeah, it's been fun. Everybody's listening. Thank you. Drop some comments in there if you enjoyed the show. We'd love to hear the feedback on that. If you're watching this later, thanks again. If you watched it live, everybody, we appreciate that too. We know it's a big commitment to take time away from everybody and watch us for an hour ramble on about stuff that maybe only us find interesting. But have a good one. We will see you guys shortly. Lisa, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Brian.